sinks in like that. You know somebody's butt. Hey.
Good morning, Guam, and thanks for starting your day the KUAM way. Of course, a starting lineup Tuesday. Group chat was out for a couple of weeks, but glad to be back at them. And this morning, the talk of the island. Of course, the governor's second state of our island address, and so we brought in some. We're gonna have a little punditry this morning. Our panel of former senatorial candidate and member of the Cannabis Control Board, Mr. Will Parkinson. Representing the administration. She's the governor's chief advisor on military affairs
And regional affairs.
and regional affairs. Former Senator Governor Leon Guerrero. We also have legislative minority leader Senator Tello Taitagui and former Senator Frank Blas Jr. So, who wants to start?
Well, I loved the State of the Union last night, and let's not bury the lead. I think
you.
the biggest story was the call for universal health care.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's the way forward. If you look at the number one problem with the hospital is they have people that cannot pay for treatment. And having some sort of universal health care on Guam will go a long, long way to alleviating a lot of the major problems we have at the hospital.
I think that was the big plan. I spoke with the governor yesterday morning. I said, hey, what are the big plans? And she's like, all our plans are big.
Yes.
But that was kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
And I think there were so many things after that that, she threw out there. But you're right, going back to it, it was kind of the big. And I'm curious, Senator Frank, what's your thoughts on that universal health care? This raises a lot of red flags for conservatives, I know.
And it does raise some flags, but as was said, this just was a plan to roll out something to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we're at that juncture where we need to put everything on the top of the table to discuss this. I'm not a huge fan of the way it's been touted, and my understanding is even as it's touted nationally, will it in a microcosm such as what that we exist in? It probably won't, or it probably will. We got to be able to take our blinders off, okay? Let's not make this a partisan politics thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look to see what can and cannot work. Obviously, there's a system that's in place now that's in shambles. My question though is, while we're going to roll out a discussion on universal health care, what are we going to do about health care now? The problem is now, okay? We have a hospital that's in dire need of repairs. We've got patients. We've got people who can't afford the health care they're getting, or if they can't get it. What are we going to do about it now? Okay, universal health care is a discussion that will probably not come to fruition 10 years, 12 years down the road.
Right.
But that said, is what are we going to do about it now? That was what I was looking for last night, and I didn't see it.
Right.
I didn't see it.
Okay.
Senator?
Well, it's similar to Obamacare. That's basically what it is Obamacare. And right now they're repealing Obamacare. So I'd like to hear her plan, how she's going to move something through.
Obamacare was not repealed. That gave the big thumbs down by Senator John McCain.
But-
Obamacare is not
But it's being
repealed.
pulled out. It's not being
No,
utilized.
no, it's not. I mean, Obamacare is the law of the land. Obamacare is so successful that a Republican supermajority could not repeal it.
Right, yeah.
But it's still, at this point, still not addressing the needs of the people.
I will
And-
agree
and
that
it's not
Obamacare is
addressing the
short
needs
and
also,
that
as
universal
well as-
health care is the answer. You are correct that Obamacare falls short, but universal health care is the answer. This is not a partisan issue. This is, do we want to be part of the developed world issue? It has nothing to do with Republican and Democrat. Every major modern country in the world has some sort of health care for all. So I say we join the future here and become a developed nation and have a medical for all, or a universal health care to it.
Well, I agree
Well,
with Senator Blah. Oh, go ahead,
Go,
please.
if I could just jump in, I think that what the governor is doing is she's putting $330 million on the table and saying, this is how much we're spending. What can we do with that? Let's rethink this. $330 million. We've got 8,600 people in MIP. There's 11,000 GovCom workers. I don't know how many retirees. Once you start getting everybody at the table and you start looking at that and seeing what's possible, but she's pushing $330 million across and saying, this is where we want to be, and this is what we're spending. What do we do to get there? And I find it very exciting
Yeah.
that we're going to embark on this. It'll be definitely with all the major players. Mike Cruz, when he was lieutenant governor, put Lou Leon Guerrero on the board, and together they got GMH accredited. So Mike is now running another hospital. I'm sure that the private sector is going to be engaged in what this ends up looking like. So I think it's a real exciting time. For me, the number one thing that I was excited in being a part of was the talking about the public safety, because I went out with her to 6 village meetings
Right, yeah.
around the island, and I know you were at a bunch of them, and I think you were there with us too. So we went out to feel what the public wanted to say, and she hit so many of those points throughout the speech. But getting 100 recruiting and getting 100 new officers at GPD, Customs, and DOC, I think is huge. And I think it goes towards making our people feel safer
Right.
in the community. So we're not all the way there, but I think that there's some legislation that's been sent down. She made a pitch to the lawmakers to report it out, add what you want, amend it, but some of it is really tough talk, talking about what to do about the sale of alcohol.
Right.
You can get a bottle of vodka, a fifth of vodka, for $3.99 in the mom and pop stores.
I've been around talking. I mean, this debate on the limiting of the alcohol sales. I think that this is going to be the big one when it gets in front of the legislature, because I don't know. There's no data. There's no numbers. But I want to go back to the hospital, and I really got to agree with Senator Frank here. Is the governor offered this huge plan about universal health care, and then she also talked about pledging funds for GMH, but I felt like it was a lot of lip service, because she just had the opportunity to give $10 million to the hospital, and she didn't even sign it. It lapsed under law. It was unanimously passed by the legislature. So, in talking with the health chair last night, Senator Teresa Lahi, she brought up that point. She said, yeah, I mean, talk is cool, but we had $10 million that we needed for GMH, and like you said, I mean, I just feel like we're
Well,
the hospital.
I mean that follows the assumption though that the only problems at GMH are funding.
Yeah, but I
the
mean,
problems at GMH
that
are
is
not
a
related.
huge part of the problem.
It is a
though.
big part of
Yeah.
the funding.
So I
yeah.
think to just say, oh well, yeah, it's not about money. Don't give them money. It's just ridiculous, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, I don't know what it is, if the administration or maybe some of the senators just don't understand that for a lot of us, that's the only hospital we can afford to go to. I just can't wrap my mind around how they've let GMH slide for, I mean, we're looking at, this is the second year of the term, and I'm still not satisfied that it's a real priority. So I got to agree with you that I didn't think there was enough right now.
Yeah,
I mean, you go to the hospital right now, the elevator's closed, the roof's leaking, and that's not even getting to, you know, people can't afford to pay for healthcare, a nursing shortage. I mean, it's just really beyond a crisis.
Well, not just the infrastructure, which I hope we can talk about later on, you know, but we're talking about the fundings associated with Medicaid too. 127 million dollars, which we have to come up with at 17%. Right now, the legislature and even the governor's proposal for Medicaid was very short, falling short of it. Now we only have $14 million to be matching for this 127. We're falling short. That's $21 million more that we have to, well, not more, but we need to come up with in order to take advantage of this 127 million. Now, what happens is when people go into Guam Memorial Hospital and can't afford it and doesn't have Medicaid or MIP, then how is Guam Memorial going to be able to you know, receive any funding for this individual patient if there's no money out there?
Part of the solutions of addressing the Medicaid problem is that the number of citizens from the freely associated states, before they could qualify for Medicaid, but then Newt Gingrich and the Republicans and President Clinton did Welfare Reform Act, they got knocked off. And so now the effort is to get them added back. It's something Hawaii's been doing, the government of Guam, the congressional leaders always join on to that. But what the governor has added to that that's a little different is she's working with the president of the FSM, as well as a message that she took to Congress, is to make Medicaid apply for them in their home islands. One of the main reasons why they leave is because they don't have adequate health care.
Right.
If Medicaid were available in Chuk or Pohnpei, then the private sector and the government would be able to help stabilize healthcare.
Right.
And it becomes a reason for them to stay here, less impact to us. Many of the solutions for GMH are going to be long-term solutions, but that one is being worked on right now.
But in the meantime, what is happening, I mean, she's not addressing it. This is something that needs to be discussed right now in order for GMH
I
to
would say
keep
that
following.
if I had Lillian Posadas here and Linda DeNorsi and other members of the fiscal team, I could drill way down into that. But there were 40 topics that she touched on in the State of
Right.
State of the Island address, and so public safety was a big one.
Right.
The
Let's,
chamber
let's
wanting
kinda
to.
switch gears on the, because you brought up the FSM, and I really liked the last part of her speech, where she basically told Congressman Mike Nicholas, like, hey, this is
Yes.
up your alley, dude. You got to
Yes.
like take control of this. You got to own it, which is something we haven't really seen him talk about in the last, or I was in his first year in office. I think maybe he might have done like a Facebook post about compact
Well,
impact,
I can
but
tell
it's
you.
ridiculous. I
I
mean,
can tell you that whatever you see the relationship with Senator Mike Nicholas, I think it took a huge step forward last night.
I had thoughts about that.
And well, the governor
Right, yeah.
is saying, we've been told this is your thing.
Right.
You've got to do this, and that wasn't her initial feeling. She told me, get us a seat at the table.
Right, right.
And she hammered at State Department. We went over to Micronesia and we talked with them, and they said that's not how state works. They don't let states at the table. Hawaii, North Carolina, nobody gets to the table. So don't make this an issue with State Department, and you're going to lose the vote. Miss the boat. You've got to go to Congress. You've got to deal with your congressional leaders. So that was hard to hear. You got to take that in. And then when the State Department said that too, so that was her acknowledging, this is yours.
Yeah.
You've got to go with it. But I've been working with his office, Sahara Defensor, all along on updates of things that we're doing, working on debt relief language, talking about this idea we just talked about, pushing for Medicaid to work in their home island. So there's always back channels. People are always talking to each
Good.
other
Right.
in politics.
Yeah, I think this is a really good opportunity for Mike Nicholas and the governor's office to kind of hit a reset button. You know, the fight for war claims is over, and we've got other problems that need to be addressed. And so, I mean, like,
we've had other problems this whole time.
yeah, we've
that
had
haven't been
we've had
addressed
other
because
problems that need.
people
To,
have been putting their eggs in this HR 1365 basket.
yeah, but now, but I think after the State of the Union or the State of the Island and the and us moving past war claims, war claims are, we've gone paying out now. The HR 1365 is on the way through. This is the time for the governor and Mike Nicholas to work together on the other issues that have been put on the back burner while this war claims has been being sorted out. And I think this is a good opportunity for the reset for them.
I just didn't buy it. I mean, and to me, it was just a sign of how petty the relationship between the congressman and the administration has been. Is that they shook hands and we're supposed to backflip out here.
Yeah.
Just don't, and we've seen this
I'm-
before.
I'm not saying that they
Yeah.
will take advantage of it. I'm
Yeah.
saying they could take
Right.
advantage of it.
Well, I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all laughing, not laughing about, but
You
kind
were
of
laughing.
anticipating. We were anticipating Mike Nicholas stand up and tear a sheet of paper at
Right.
the end of the speech.
Yeah.
It was
Right.
kind of funny, but I'm glad he didn't. I mean,
Yeah.
we respect the office of the governor, and she's doing the best she can, I think. But there are some issues that I just thought the speech fell short. It was very weak. There was not a whole lot of solutions, especially with the hospital and the task force, on the infrastructure. Now we talk about, the management section of it. And I've had a bill that's been out there to bring the legislature and the administration together and not repeat what happened last term where both, the branches of government could not get along and nothing happened. So she not once
Now they're getting along
mentioned.
too good.
Yeah, well, not definitely not our side. according
So
to,
well, farewell, Mr. Will.
Yeah, well, definitely not on our side, and I think it's a collaborative effort. She's not helping us out. She didn't mention anyone except Will, but But I think this is the opportunity for us to work together, and we've reached out to the administration, especially this bill that reaches out to her. And I'm just really surprised she didn't once mention about this task force that would have addressed administrative issues as well as the infrastructure.
You're just in the wrong party.
Yeah, I mean though, like,
And unfortunately,
are we really
it's not that
sending
I'm
the
in
message
wrong
that you're willing
party,
to work
it's
with the other
that-
party though? Like
Yeah.
the guy that did work with the other party got removed as majority leader. Is that really showing the sign that we're working with the other party?
I think with the
Well,
Republicans,
no,
you guys have
if you
to.
listen to what she said during the coronavirus briefing, when Senator Moylan stood up there and told her, said, Governor, I put out a bill out there that would help to increase the emergency funding that the governor needs in case of an emergency.
Right, right.
And we have that bill, but it has yet to be heard. Her response was, well, Senator, if I need any help, I will go to the majority.
That's something
The
I'm really
majority.
disappointed about.
That was
is,
so disappointing.
I mean, it's nothing
we
new,
wanna
partisan
work.
politics, right?
Yeah, but that needs to be put aside. This is for the people of Guam. This is not party politics. We have a hospital that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
You know,
He's
and
brewing
that-
over here.
that-
Let-
you don't have to
even
be a
the
Democrat or
yeah,
Republican
but I
to
mean,
walk
even the
into that
stuff Jim
door.
Moylan puts out is a lot of it is just virtue signaling by Jim Moylan. A lot of like, look at me bills that aren't going to do anything.
Right.
Are you sure about that? You never gave
They
the
never have,
opportunity. bro.
yeah, if they had a
Yeah.
public hearing
On
and
the-
to
on the-
discuss about it, maybe
yeah, and
it
on the
will be.
Moylan stuff, I really think that they are making Jim Moylan way bigger than he really is by shutting him out and shutting out his bills. I mean, geez, you got the supermajority. Let him out and defeat him a good old-fashioned way. Because
Absolutely.
I mean, every time they don't let one of his bills or yours see the light of day, it just only strengthens that whole image that it is partisan. And I mean, it is. So, Senator Frank, I know that you're taking this all in. I'm curious.
I really don't have to say much. Everybody else is, KK.
Well, you
You're
know-
doing a good job of saying what I want to say.
You know what? One of the things I want to say about something that's a show of support, because we just took a little bit of a beating here of whether we support or not support the legislature, but there was some major legislation on minimum wage that she stood very strongly by last night and said that
Good for
she's
her.
going to push this out. I feel, and she characterizes the people. Make this an investment in the people. Don't
Carla,
call this as a.
What do you say that? How does raising the minimum wage now, okay, help the individuals that are being laid off today because of the downturn, the anticipated downturn of the
Well,
downturn?
I would go to what the governor was saying, and we've been around government long enough. I've seen some hits. I've seen some hits to government, and this is not a lethal body blow that we're experiencing right now. We can look at the federal spending that's coming our way. I've been around in the legislature when PACA and the Korean Airlines crash hit. We took a hit from 1.2 million tourists down to 700,000, and yet we survived.
9/11.
And we are resilient. So to say that what we're experiencing right now is such a heavy body blow that you have to roll it back on the backs of the people that are getting minimum
Never
wage.
saying roll it
That's
back. It's just
or
put-
to hold
hasn't even
back on
started.
it.
It's starting-
To hold
it's
back on
starting
it.
on Sunday.
It's 3,500 people. 3,500 people. That's going to make such a difference to them in their lives.
Let me ask
and
you
these
this,
businesses
so
are going to
what about this,
rebound.
this
These
idea
businesses
that-
are going to do fine.
If they keep their job, if
What
these
about this
companies don't
idea
close
that,
down,
Senator, what about this idea that, okay, go ahead, let the minimum wage thing go through, but can we look at maybe lowering the BPT, right? And I feel like the governor has like built that wall with the business community, and she's just not going to budge on it. And she's got the votes, you know what I mean? And I feel like there has to be some type of concession.
Well, I can
There
tell
has
you
to
the
be.
difference. I was sitting there
If I
next.
could do the trade, it would be $15 minimum wage for a BPT reduction. That would be the grand
Yeah,
bargain.
I
I
was
would
sitting
read
next to
about
George
that, you know.
Bomba, another chief of staff. He and I were chief of staffs at different Republican administrations. And when the governor says we're hiring, we have hired 100 police officers, customs, DOC guards. I remember unfortunately, what Governor Calvo had to go through without the extra funds that have come in and the laws on how you had to be timely on tax refunds. When Governor Calvo's people went to the child support fund and took from the child support fund, and they borrowed money from the child support fund so that they could make payroll. That was a common occurrence. That's the stuff that was everyday life
Right, right.
of what my experience was like up there. So to be able to have this, to stabilize the government, set something aside for a rainy day, and there will be a rainy day. When you go from 1.2
Raining
million
today.
to 700,000, because
Okay.
of a crash, because of a typhoon that's unrelated, then you've got to,
Yeah, but
you know that
yeah.
this is going
a
to,
There's always
crash and
been
a
a radi-
typhoon.
yeah,
okay,
it's different,
That's
yeah.
okay. That's localized. That happened just here.
Right.
We're talking about something that's happening worldwide.
Worldwide.
Something that has a, not only effect on tourism but on the economy as well.
You got
Okay.
$14 million in a rainy
You're
day
going to have
fund.
commodities. There's going to be effect on commodities. There's not just going to be effect on the tourism, people that come to Guam, but
there's
gonna be-
$8 billion in construction that's going to be spent over the next
Well,
7 years.
and that-
The-
so we're
the-
gonna
you know what?
hang our hat
Everybody
on
should
the
be
$8 billion.
concerned about how
First
to.
off, $1 billion is already spent. Where did it all go?
800 million has already gone. It's gone into roads. It's gone into construction.
What about-
up on
Inside the
bases,
fence, right?
Inside the fence line.
Inside the fence,
But-
but what
but-
about outside the fence line?
And this has
And-
triggered the Section 30 increase. This has triggered the increase in federal spending, record military federal spending that we have right now. So our focus is to try to strengthen our regulatory shields so we don't get overwhelmed. That's something that the governor took over there. The challenges we're going to have, senators, in the coming time is how do we beef up permitting? So we think that retirees should be able to come back and double dip. Or maybe there's going to have to be some level of privatization with somebody that's a trusted person in charge of it. That's what's heading down the pike. In order to be able to capitalize on $8 billion in construction, there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done
The
to
governor
close
was-
loopholes.
Yeah. The governor was talking about $14 million in the rainy day fund. Well, first, the rainy day fund has been around a long time. But if you're looking at $9.1 million in tourists just in the TAF section, have you accumulated what's going to happen in the general fund section? Liquid fuel tax and special funds. If you look at that, and that's just the first month. That's already almost
I have
14
greater
million.
faith in the government than
Yeah.
you do,
In the
Senator
rate-
Chano. I've
honestly,
seen
this
what a rough ride
coronavirus
looks like.
is-
I've been on a rough ride.
The
I've
common
seen what we
cold
can
kills
do.
100,000 people a year. Like the coronavirus hasn't even surpassed the common cold yet.
Yeah. This
So
is not a
let's-
rough
Paper
ride.
this morning about 700 more additional people in South Korea, the
Yeah.
largest tourist industry that
Yeah,
comes
I
into
gotta
our
say,
island.
on the coronavirus, I
This
felt
is-
like it was almost glossed over.
There
And
was
that-
nothing
and
on
there was
it.
this like,
You know, the
we're
people are-
coronavirus free, and I know that we in the media room were like, oh, knock on wood, because it was just a
I
little
get
premature.
constituents
Well, this
calling
is
me
huge.
all the time, and I'm sure you do as well. How well are we prepared for in the
I
event
have so
this
much
comes
faith in
in?
Well,
Linda
I think we
DeNorsi.
are in
I have
great
faith
shape
in
to
Linda
handle.
DeNorsi.
Yeah, I do
Where are
too.
they
Like,
gonna go?
well, look,
Where are they gonna be
look how well they
quarantined?
handled the dengue problem. They did a great
This is
job on the dengue.
dengue.
Again,
This
I'm
is
gonna talk
coronavirus
about- you're not
killing
talking
how many
about a
people? It's deaths so
localized
far.
issue.
Over 2,000 deaths so far, just
Hey,
in this
let's
area.
not forget that months ago, dengue fever was the end of the world on Guam. All those people that were calling for a part-time legislature were all, "Where is the government?" when dengue came around. And they did such a fantastic job at dengue that people are not even giving them credit for
I
handling
don't think it was that great. I
I-
mean,
I
I
do.
mean,
I do. I have great faith in them. I've been around for
if
to
if
watch
they
them put
didn't
this
do a
together.
good job, we
Of
would-
course.
yeah.
Of
Yes.
course,
The fact that we're saying, was it really a big deal? Meant the left tackle did their job. They protected the blindside rush, and we weren't surprised by it.
Well, definitely.
And so I mean,
kudos to that.
their response on dengue and how well Linda DeNorsi handled that situation
yeah. But, I mean,
gives
when
me
you-
all
when
the
you-
confidence in
I just don't know if
coronavirus.
the
Me
average
too.
Joe in Josefa Cruz out there looks at dengue and goes, "That was a big win for the administration. Way to go." I
To
just
handle
don't
it,
see
I mean, well, I mean, like
They're
the fact,
doing their job.
Right.
That's
For-
what
for-
needs to be done.
Yeah,
That's
for
what's
the average
expected.
citizen, the fact
Wasn't
that
it
we
here
had
before?
dengue is a loss. But from
You
the
know,
people
dengue
who
has
are
been
meant
in
to
Micronesian
respond to
islands
it,
for the longest
the fact that
time.
we handled it so well,
Guys,
is a
dengue's
feather.
done.
Yeah,
Dengue's-
We're done with dengue.
and that's why I'm not
Moving
worried about
forward. Yeah.
coronavirus
But
because
you know-
we got it handled.
You
Oh, I
mentioned
hope
Governor
you're
Calvo.
so right. I
and-
really do.
I do too.
I do.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay,
I
well,
respect, yes, and I want to believe that, Will, that if we have coronavirus here, that we will be able to handle it.
Yeah.
Okay? I want to be, and we need to be able to trust in that, all right? I need to be able to trust in it.
Right.
But what we don't have control of is how coronavirus is affecting the rest of the world. Dengue fever was just within our region, okay? It was basically just between 3 islands. That was it.
Yeah.
It had no effect on Korea and Japan, okay, and Australia and Hong Kong and the United States. It had no effect on them. What we're dealing with is a virus that is actually having an effect outside of us externally that's going to affect us internally.
I
I have
understand
faith.
that.
I have
when
faith
we
in
do
our.
get a case
I have
shot.
faith in our processes. I have faith in our shields. And
There's difference
can
between
have-
having
we
faith, but show us the plan. What is the game plan?
Again,
What
We're not
have
talking
you put
about
in
Jesus
place?
here. I
Well,
want to see something.
and,
You
and
know?
again, Carla, I respect that. I
People
respect
need
that
to
we have
know,
the shield to be able to
you know?
stop it from coming in.
Mm-hmm.
How do we affect? How do we deal with how it's affecting the world as it is affecting us? Okay, I'm not talking about the person that's going to get coronavirus or bring it into Guam. I'm talking about the number of tourists, the number of flights that have already been canceled. I'm talking about the commodities that are going to go up because China's no longer going to be able to export. The trade industry is going to take a drastic hit on this. I'm concerned about those areas.
well, I guess one of the things that we should
Okay.
just throw on the table is whether many people on the island like it or not, we have two industries here. One of it is tourism, and one of them is military. And when one of them is coming along this way, another one is right there. That's not a luxury that any of these governments around the Pacific have. When something hits them and they go down in tourism or they get hit, that's a near fatal body blow. We've got something.
I
We've
think we were
always
lucky
had
though
something.
with this Coke North because we can't just snap our finger and say, "Hey, come to a big training and fill up Tumon," right? So I think it was a blessing because right when people were talking about cancellations, people were, and it's kind of anecdotal, but they were on social media saying, "Hey, I'm down here in Tumon, and God, the strip clubs are packed and the restaurants are packed," but that's kind of like once in a while, right?
I went to get my hair cut. I go to Little Tommy's Barbershop, there's a plug, and there was 15 guys that
Yeah.
had walked in
All getting
off
the
the
same
road
haircut, right?
to
Yeah.
get their hair cut. I couldn't believe it. They were just walking by and saw Little Tommy's
but
and came in.
Going back to you talked about Governor Cavo, and I spoke with former Senator Tony Atta last night, and he brought up an interesting point that it was the governor's second State of the Island address, but where you usually have a new administration coming in, it's usually the first one that they take shots at their predecessor. But she did take some shots at Governor Cabo last night. There was one where she talked about only 5 affordable homes were sold, and then there was that little jab about closing the police stations and the fire stations. So
Yeah, I was really surprised too at that. I thought she would also give credit to the last administration because these graduates, the 21 graduated from the police academy, 15 of that was during the last administration's finding the funding through the Department of Justice, for the 3-year grant that was given. That was 15. She only supported 6 or, found funding for 6, or the legislature found funding for 6. And
What about
did not
behavioral
mention
health?
that behavioral wellness. It was in the end of November 2018 where it was submitted to the judge on getting out of receivership, all the documentation needed and to do that. And that was done in November of 2018. That was again the administration, but I was hoping she would mention that fact, but
well, that's nothing new. I mean, you guys
guess
take
not.
credit for other people's accomplishments all the time.
All the administrations, one
Yeah.
go over another. I watched Joe Atta take so
Well, let's
much
hope she'd be
credit for
different,
Joe Atta take credit
Change,
for
'cause it was
the
Change.
Agadumatic Road that Ricky
Yeah.
Berdallo,
Right.
bled blood over to make
Right.
the Agadumatic Road. One thing just goes over into another, and just because she's carrying some of there is no doubt. The work on the behavioral, getting us out of receivership,
The
was
police
done during
officers.
done during the Cabo administration, and before that in the Camacho administration. It was a long haul that stretched over a lot of people. I mean, over a lot of administrations, and then it finally turned the corner. But it turned the corner, and
She ran it into the end zone, I guess.
yeah, exactly.
It's
That's
almost
exactly
like a
what
Mike
happened.
Nicholas and
Yeah.
the war claims thing, right?
Yeah.
And then the housing, affordable housing, mentioning 127, the last administration had 2,700 houses.
Which
So
they all
it-
claimed, I'm sure, too.
during the last
Yes, yes.
administration, right? And then 127 this year. Well, that's she's got a long way to go, to try and bypass that amount. But and again, we reach out to the administration as the Republicans to give ideas to help assist with the administration. But it looks like we're just like, oh no,
Chopped
we
liver?
don't need you.
No, I would not say. I would say.
And I'm hoping, as a former Republican, you can
I've
bring
had-
us all together
But
again,
she's
right?
still a Republican.
I've had many discussions.
My bad.
I've had many discussions in support of Senator Telo Taitagui up at Adelup, of what's important to her, what she's pushing, and
Appreciate that.
your
Thank
votes
you.
in support has been noted, and you're spoken of, and we care about what's important to you. I can say that. I can say that here.
Do you feel that, Senator?
Well, I
feel like
definitely
you're
put
caring
it out
about-
there, and you know, I definitely asked the
Did you get a
the
Valentine's
administration. Well, I'm happy that she just let it lapse. My hospital task force let that lapse in law instead of veto, but I think it had to do with all 15 senators having to vote for that.
Right. And that's
She's
something I think
vetoed. I was
that's
the first
interesting
bill
is-
she vetoed. And that was having the directors, held accountable for reports that are due on time for people who are trying to get permits. And of course, she vetoed my very first bill. I don't know whether to feel good about it or not. But one thing is, I'm very
you never
open to
forget
this.
those.
Yeah,
You never forget
but I'm
those.
very open to
Still
meeting
mad
with
at Carl
the-
about that.
to the administration. Open door. Carlotta and I have been friends for a long time. I know that I
She's
can use
your
a
in.
Mika for. Yep, I can
No
call
pun
her.
intended.
No,
If something comes.
I do
comes
pay
up.
attention to her.
But I appreciate some of the stuff that they passed a lot of my bills. I think I have about 12 maybe bills that have passed already, and I appreciate that, And what, two
You got to give
veto?
Jim Moylan some pointers.
Yeah.
Well, no, Jim is doing his best. He's out there. I mean, come on, the guy has is reaching out to the public at the community centers, or I still call them. Am I revealing my age? Saying community
No, I do
centers.
too.
Always be the
But
community center.
over at senior citizen centers and places like that, he reaches out to the public and wants to hear what they have to say. So he's doing his due diligence and listening to the people. It's not just talking all the time, but actually listening, taking in what they have to say and incorporating that into legislation. Now, whether it gets a public hearing or not,
I don't know. I see the
but
stuff he
has an
proposes, and it's
idea.
all very right wing and like.
Senator Frank said it correctly. Give the opportunity. Put those bills out. I believe it was you, Chris.
Yeah.
Put them out.
That's what
let
I'm saying.
the
I mean,
people
if it is
discuss about it.
super far,
it's not
right
you
wing,
or
then let it die. I mean,
This
they
is
can do
not
it.
a communistic. It's supposed to be or dictatorship. This is
Like,
supposed to be a
like
democratic.
his whole thing with the part-time legislature, he's just giving private companies an opportunity to buy senators outright. And so, I don't agree with that approach at all.
Well, I agree
with
classifying some
once
of the
upon, like,
positions
if
at the
that bill were to
legislature.
pass
We
and
can
we
go
had
back,
it
Carlotta.
exactly like Jim Moylan wanted it, a senator could run for senator, get a seat, and then go to one of the expensive hotels and sell themselves to them openly. And
Many
there's
of the
nobody.
democratically led legislatures in the states are part-time. Well,
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I
So to say
don't
that-
agree with it.
To say that a part-time legislature gives opportunities for businesses to buy, that's talking about the integrity of the person. That votes
I'm
to
talking
see
about the
this.
integrity of the system, not the integrity of the
That's-
people.
no, you're right.
And like
It
what
starts
we're
with the
doing,
people.
and what we're doing is we're making the system weaker by basically legalizing bribery.
Yeah,
What do
but
you think
hey,
about,
there was nothing about a part-time legislator in the state of the island. So
But
we
let me
got
go back to
okay, go ahead.
and
We're all making Jim Moylan bigger
but,
here.
but you know, but,
Right.
but going back to
He's a good guy.
who took the credit,
aight.
okay, and who did this and who did what. At the end of the day, what the people of Guam should be careful is don't worry about who gets the credit, just get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get it into the end zone, as you
And,
said.
and
Get
let's
it
talk
into
about the
end zone.
things they got
Amen.
done. They got the
I
war
remember
claims
that.
done. They stopped dengue. They put in all these cops. They're doing some good work. Could they do more?
I almost feel like war
Absolutely.
claims was that a topic?
Yes.
That was in the speech.
A little
Yeah,
bit,
it was
yeah.
towards the end.
I think I might have went to the bathroom.
It was like all of the federal
But
senators
I
talking
agree. I
about
think that was a big win for the administration.
Yeah. And as far as Mike St. Nicholas and the governor's office, personally, I don't think they'll ever agree. But mainly because I think Mike St. Nicholas is going to run for governor, either against Lou or either against Josh in the future. But I think he's gearing up, and what he's doing is he's trying to differentiate himself, set himself apart to gear up for this run. And because of that, I don't think there'll ever be peace between them.
Right. And then plus he's probably going to switch to his real political party and then
Oh yeah, put that magic R on them.
I don't know about that.
Well,
guys want him?
have you seen
I
some
don't
of his
know. Well,
policies?
wait,
Well, a
isn't
lot of
there
you
an
Republicans
investigation
want-
still going on with
It
Mike
is,
St.
yeah,
Nicholas?
yeah.
Isn't there still an investigation?
Yeah, but I think the Trump trial has showed us that the House is kind of toothless when it comes to enforcement. So
Well,
who
they
knows
did
what?
with the California representative.
Well,
They
she did
took
no.
her
They
down,
they,
right?
they didn't take her
Yeah.
down. She took herself down.
Right,
She quit.
exactly,
Right,
because of
right.
the issues of
Yeah,
this
but I mean,
investigation.
like the Trump
Supposedly they're
administration has showed
out
us if you
looking
take
for-
a trial
Even
all the way to
locally,
the end,
something going
the House
Yeah,
has no
locally
teeth.
too as well.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, locally too as well. So,
So
I
with the
think
investigation, I think what and talking to
public-
people familiar with it is they're still investigating it, and then what's going to happen is when they finish their report, they're supposedly going to sit down with the congressman and be like, "This is what we found. Do you want to resign or whatever the case
Or
may
do we
be,
go
or
to
do
the-
we censure you or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
or you just write it." And I can really see him just writing it. I think.
Yeah,
no
he's-
matter
he's-
what
Well, I
that-
just hope
If
the
I
governor
were
takes
him, I
more
would
of
just
a,
write it out.
yeah,
you
he's
know,
just going to say, "Oh, they're all out to get me."
Yeah.
I just hope the governor takes more of initiative to go to DC to advocate for the island of Guam at this point, because when I was out there in DC, you know, the stigma of just having an investigation over your head, people tend to just back away
Yeah.
from you or not listen to you or talk to you. So, you know, that's what I was seeing when I went to DC,
I mean, it's not
and it was
even
kind of, you know, hurtful. So I just
But,
hope the
yeah.
governor, you know, makes more trips out to DC, you know, to advocate for the island,
And I think that's,
and hopefully
But
work with the
she's
senator. I mean,
she's damned if she does,
the
damned if she
congressman.
doesn't though.
Right,
If she
right.
goes out there and helps in DC,
Mike's going to get
he's
mad.
gonna she you're interfering.
Right.
But if she
There's-
stays
there's many-
if she
many
stays home,
issues.
but if she stays home, he's gonna go, I'm not getting any help.
Or I did everything. Right.
Yeah.
There's many issues.
We
that
saw
can
him
bring
we
the
saw him
governor
pull
to
that with
DC.
Underwood.
I think what's happening here is this kind of like the handshake is. I think Congressman St. Nicholas might see the writing on the wall. I mean, everybody's talking about this atrocious voting record that he like.
That is
I mean,
pretty
the
bad.
way he's explaining it, it's insulting to our intelligence.
You talked about that in the State of the Island last night?
No.
So
Oh,
why
yeah, I know. Anyway, so hey, we got to wrap. Thank you guys again. Former senatorial candidate Will Parkinson, from the administration, former Senator Leon Guerrero, Minority Leader Senator Tello Tideway, and former Senator Frank Laws Jr. This has been a group chat, KUAM starting lineup. Thank you so much. Wasi Chris, adios.
Just